Hey, Ruthless Church, how's it going? This morning, I want to talk to you about thinking, thinking in general. Like a lot of times when I go for my walks, obviously I think, and this morning I was thinking about God, and I think you may have heard me say this before, I might have written in a past blog, that I'm consciously aware that my thoughts about God are not God. And I don't know if that makes sense, but a lot of times I imagine that we think about God or we think about people and we think about events and we get upset and we go through, or we get happy or whatever the feeling associated with that thought might be. But how many of us slow down to realize that our thoughts about that thing are not the thing itself? So when I say my thoughts about God are not God, that means that in times when I think that I might be following God or something like that, in fact, I may not be. I may be just thinking about God or thinking about Christ and what I think Christ thinks, which is just two steps away from the reality of what Christ may think if Christ thinks. And I end up, I can't give you an example right now, but I'm sure that I do it frequently, just being human and all. So what I try to do is I try to remind myself that my thoughts about something are not the thing itself. Because if it were, then my thoughts about breakfast would be breakfast and I wouldn't have to eat, Or my thoughts about driving somewhere would get me there and I wouldn't have to drive. And maybe on some metaphysical level that I'm not aware of, I don't have to eat and I don't have to drive, but in the reality that I'm experiencing physically, I eat for food and I take my car or some form of transportation to get from one place to another. So, that being said, my thoughts about the thing are not the thing. And I think that's important because a lot of times there's a lot of arguments about religion or politics or all sorts of things. And a lot of times it's just thoughts interacting with other thoughts. And it's not the things themselves. But because we convince ourselves that our thoughts are the reality of the thing in which we're thinking about, then we can get all puffed up and be like, yeah, this is what Romney, blah, 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 or Obama, or this is what Jesus or Buddha or whatever it is. We get into all these arguments and not realizing that when we are following the thoughts that we have about things, the more we do that, the further we are away from things. But that's not to say that thinking about these types of things aren't productive and don't have value in your life. Because I come from a long line of worriers and overthinkers. And when I was a kid and I caught myself picking up that habit, I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to think all the time, I better pick one thing that's worth thinking about. And so I decided to think about God. And so because I thought about God a lot, I do think that thinking about God prepares one to encounter God. Thinking about, what you're going to eat and prepares you to encounter the food that you desire, and things like that. So thinking about things prepares you to encounter the thing itself. But thinking about the thing is not the thing itself. So I want you to think about that. Peace.